Welcome to the show, The Debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, once again with you at PTV WORLD. In today's show, we will be talking about two very important stories. One, of course, is relating to what's going on within Pakistan regarding electoral reforms and the buying and selling of votes. We've seen recently that a video has surfaced in which we can see a number of people involved in the practice of buying and selling votes. This, of course, the notice of this has been taken by the ECP. They've also written letters to various organizations, including Nadra and Bemra, to take notice of these videos, conduct forensic analysis and figure out who the people are and initiate the process of identifying the people and the building, and then of course ordering the arrests of these people as well. But of course the larger question points to the fact that such practices still continue to happen after so many debates regarding electoral reform, so many commitments by different political parties, talk of how this is needed for transparency and progress of the country. But yet again we see that actual curbs that need to be put in place perhaps are not in place. Perhaps more work needs to be done by the institutions as well as the political parties, including the opposition parties, who need to take responsibility as to what has happened and equally contribute in terms of the democratic process and upholding of the democratic norms. And that, unfortunately, is not something which is seen, and that is a huge problem, of course. And to further identify and deconstruct this and understand what is really going on, what needs to be done, who all are responsible and how much they can play their own role in this particular bit in making sure that we actually move towards reforms that help this process forward, is what we're going to talk about in further detail. Next, we also have a topic where we discuss the situation with regards to the Saudi financial aid package. We also know that a lot of talk has been done, a lot of speculations have been done regarding this package, the sort of conditions that have been put on Pakistan, the sort of repercussions it has on Pakistan's economy, whether or not it's going to contribute to a significant change, whether or not this is a cycle that Pakistan needs to escape from. Are we really moving towards a plan which is important and helpful for the country's economy or not? What are really is going on in terms of the agreement that has been decided between the State Bank and, of course, the Saudi officials. This is an important discussion because we need to understand how such actions trickle down for the benefit of the common people, and how they cannot be judged immediately as to whether or not they're beneficial for the country. Regardless, we will take a look at the different sides of this story and the pros and cons and the options and choices that Pakistan has in the current scenario. These are the two topics that we will be discussing the show, and of course, as always, we will be joined by our respected guests. We have Mr. Farrukh, Pitafi and Raja Faisal, as always, in the studio. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. And we've also been joined by, of course, Mr. Sarwar Bari, who is a political analyst, as an expert on our topic regarding the buying and selling of votes and the practice that needs to be curtailed. Thank you very much for joining us on the debate, sir.
Thank you.
Before we start a discussion around what is happening with regards to this video surfacing and the kind of discussion that has been held, Farrukh and Faisal, there's a lot of content that we've seen come up front, and we've discussed various other contents coming from different parts of the world before in the show, but a lot of it that we see today within Pakistan as well is something that puts the people and the practices and the political parties to ridicule.
Sana, first of all, I'll just explain the video. The video itself, it seems very well. I mean, everyone was portraying excellent in there, and the things which were going on, they expose our electoral system that persists and exists since long time. We know that in 90s these kind of political gimmicks, they were part of politics at that time, and we continuously hear this, that our electoral system, it actually allows, if not in the cities but in the rural areas, it does happen. The things which were being shown in there, I mean, putting your hand on.
You come from a village?
I do.
Right, I also do, and I tell you, on election day, usually because the constituencies are really, polling booths are scattered, and there is long distance. So whosoever sends a tractor trolley, and whosoever actually provides or for catering, gets the vote. This is what has been happening, right? But my concern is not that. I tell you what the concern is. I today saw the statement from the Election Commission, who have actually pointed out that they are going to actually have a forensic examination of this whole thing.
Right.
The question is, must we always record a video and then make it viral, send her, and then share it with the Election Commission? Then something is going to happen.
Right.
Where is the
Preventive measures.
preventive measures and the capacity of Election Commission to actually ensure that
this
these
does
things
not
don't
happen.
happen?
Right.
And they have been happening for quite some
But
time.
does the ECB hold all responsibility here?
It does, of course. They are the ones who are responsible for this. But of course, the system should be providing them the adequate resources as well to make sure that things are in place. By the way, earlier tractor trolley and the buses and all of these things which used to be used
They
in
still
the
are.
election. They still
Unless
get
you
the-
have a conveyor belt or a helicopter,
Yeah.
people travel on that in the villages.
By the way, it's only a one-way trip. Nobody offers you on your way back. You
No, no,
always
they-
in my, because I had seen in my childhood. I'm talking about the 90s, and we used to spend time at the.
You were a child in 90s.
Yeah.
But regarding,
Don't feel bad,
you know, of course, one has to come to terms with one's aging as well. But regarding what was happening in this video, it actually kind of lent credence to what Prime Minister of Pakistan has been saying. Keeme wale naan.
Exactly.
The naans with minced meat that is distributed, and then people actually
Right.
go to jalsas and vote.
Right. It
So
is.
on one side is this grinding poverty that has been there, and then the politicians or political class who have been exploiting it, right? This is sad,
It's
amazing.
extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, sad, amazing, and sometimes when they are caught in the act, amusing as well.
Yeah,
Slightly
and the
amusing.
worst thing is, you know, using holy book of Quran to get the pledges of the
Of
people.
course, the people would go down
And-
to any measure. That's
Yeah,
absolutely
and
ridiculous.
It itself is so horrific to see that the the political parties, even they know that how to bribe the poor people and how
Yeah.
to make sure.
And how common
I
this
think,
practice has
I'm-
become, Faisal.
I'm intrigued that you are reading, you have focused more about Quran and all that, because that is a cultural part, right?
Yeah.
But my concern is grinding poverty and the way it is exploited by the political class.
Yeah.
I mean, when BIESP actually came, and Asif Zardari Sahab once speaking to us actually told us, we are going to win because we have started providing 1,000 rupees per month to one family.
in
Right?
this
It is-
Just
it
think
is-
about
it is
that.
absolutely unfortunate that the price of these votes is so low, such important decision that of course contributes to how the political scenario of a country is going to take shape. It is just based on food items or factors such as symbolic religious practices. Mr. Sarwar Bari, we're talking about, of course, these videos as something that is quite a norm for us, something we've seen for many years and decades. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, it's common practice. A lot of people just accept it that it is. And that is the real unfortunate part, where these practices no longer shock the general public. Something that is happening, is bound to happen, is going to happen. But I thought we were moving towards a plan where we actually take the real steps needed to curb these practices. Do you think that this is just another fiasco that is just come out, which is regular practice, has to come out before any elections, and then it's just going to create a spur and then it's going to die down?
Well, thank you very much. In my view, the major issue is, as Farrukh just said, is poverty. And of course, it's just not poverty, it's layers of inequalities. So we have to look at the whole thing, that whether our democracy can flourish in such situations, or it will be just in the hands of elite to exploit the poor people. And this video, I don't know whether it was a fake video or a genuine video, but
Right.
the fact of the matter is that I know of the fact that we observe elections and we know that the vote buying is widespread among poor people. I have seen this in India as well during 2004 elections. Many people confessed that they have sold their votes because they knew, according to them, that nothing will come after the elections. This is the best opportunity to grab some money from the rich people. And similar things are happening now in Pakistan. I have a book which was presented to me by the former Chief Election Commissioner of India. I can show you the book title as well. It is in front of me. It is written by S.Y. Qureshi, who wrote this book, and in his book, page 265, he mentions 40 ways of buying and pressuring voters in India. So if it can continue in India after 72 years, it will continue happening in Pakistan as well. So, of course, Election Commission of Pakistan is responsible under Article 200, 218 and 220 to hold free, fair and fair elections. Right. But nobody can do anything as long as our elites are bent upon misusing the poverty, the inequalities and subjugation of poor people. The vote buying will continue.
But I'm glad that you actually pointed out what the responsibility of the state of Pakistan is and election commission is. But can you walk us through the topography of legal, assurances that are there to make sure that this doesn't happen? Does election commission have actual teeth as well to bite whenever such exploitation takes place? What are the punishments? And finally, while this is happening, is there a way to ensure that they can actively go out of their sphere of comfort or their zone of comfort and actually ensure that this doesn't happen?
Well, we have a saying that if a man and a woman, क्या कहते हैं उसमें उर्दू में है, I can't translate that, कुड़ी मुंडा राजी तो की करे काजी. So if a voter and buyer and a seller are having some agreement quietly, nobody can find out. So the only solution is that our state, if state is really is serious about democratization in the country, then the state must address poverty and inequality as the first priority. Right. So, without addressing poverty and inequality, I would say, I'm sorry to say, the vote buying and negative voting will continue. In India, according to Qureshi Sahib, there is a negative voting as well. If I know that in certain area, my rival is going to win, I would bribe the voters not to vote. So that we found out in previous elections as well that people were paying money or confiscating their ID cards, and ID cards are returned after the polling day so that my opponent can't win that particular polling station. So this, in my view, will continue. But of course, Election Commission, if finds somebody involved in this kind of corrupt practices, he or she must be punished. And I think the Election Commission must take some action as far as this video is concerned. It is still going on. We know we are getting some information from NA 133 and also from Khanewal by-election, which is a provincial election, and Khushab, that vote buying is going on at wide scale level.
Right, and of course, the action that actually results from the ECP taking notice is what's going to count, whether or not this is going to meet its end. Before we continue the discussion, let's look at this package prepared by our team, and then we'll continue it from here.
In a joint session, Pakistan's Parliament. in the Election Act 2017, which included electronic voting and the right to vote for the overseas Pakistanis. Joint opposition contested EVMs by saying that it will compromise the secrecy of the ballot and can also be hacked. On the other hand, by-election in NA 133, which is taking place after the death of PMLN's MNA Pervez Malik, has once again revealed the ugly truth of sale and purchase of votes in Pakistan. There are videos circulating on social media where workers of two main opposition parties, PMLN and PPP, can be allegedly seen buying and selling votes for merely 2,000 rupees. Local leaders of Pakistan People's Party and Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz hurled allegations against each other following the video went viral. The Election Commission of Pakistan took notice of the viral video of an alleged vote buying and sought a detailed report from the Deputy Commissioner Lahore and Inspector General Police Punjab. This ugly situation has once again proved the need of electoral reforms in Pakistan for free and fair elections.
Well, you saw what has happened, and of course the bigger questions are how to prevent these actions from happening, because we see such things surfacing in the past as well, and then there is a knee-jerk reaction. But what we want, of course, is for these things not to happen, to be able to put a plan in place where the common man is not tempted to be able to sell his or her vote. Of course, when we look at what has come forward in the aftermath of this video surfacing, Mr. Sarwar Pari, we've seen that we have political parties like the PMLN and the PPP blaming each other, talking about how the practices of buying and selling is something that the other political party is doing. We don't see the kind of responsibility that needs to be taken up, or a stance that needs to be taken up by the opposition parties in general as to how these practices need to be checked. This thing needs to be investigated further, and how they stand by electoral reforms and a move towards more transparency. Is this not also the responsibility of our political parties and other democratic institutions, and not just the ECP, to create that sort of a scenario we were earlier talking about where these practices don't flourish?
Well, I think primarily we need to look at our politics and political parties, and I can say with confidence that since political parties have no internal democracy and no local party chapters, they heavily rely on Biradari elders and community elders bargain with political parties during the electoral campaigns because there are no political party chapters, so they have to rely on these people, and these people are under tremendous pressure from their people in that area, neighborhood and villages. So they bargain on behalf of their own people, and they think that they can bring in money or they can bring in some development projects as well. But I think that the funny thing is that Election Commission has put restrictions on MNAs that they can't visit NA 133. Any MNA or MPA is not allowed to visit the constituency where elections are going to take place. But Shaista Malik is herself is an MNA. He is a sitting MNA of PMLN, and she is also contesting election. I think the reason I'm highlighting this issue is because we need to have reforms where a person should not be able to contest election on multiple constituencies. Under the law, if Pitafi Sahib intends to contest election from 272 constituencies, he can contest. And because of that law, after every general election, we have a mini general election, because many leaders contest election from multiple constituencies, and under the law they can only retain one constituency and they have to resign from other constituencies. Nobody, including PTI, PMLN and Pakistan People's Party or JUIF, are not taking up this issue. And as a result of that, we have only 204 families who are controlling our legislative, business and political sphere. So there are multiple overlapping of monopolies, economic as well as political and legislative. I think this is not sustainable.
Faisal, you had a question?
So we have to build pressure. When I say we, means civil society, trade unions, intellectuals, they must build pressure on political parties so that we can have meaningful political and electoral reforms in the country. Of course, I have been supporting EVM, but EVM alone is not going to bring radical change in Pakistan. It may increase voters' bank, it may decrease rigging, but it is not going to bring any socio-economic change in the country. So I think we need to be serious about these issues. We have monopolies of all kind in Pakistan, and similarly we have multiple layers of deprivations and vulnerabilities and subjugation. So I think that we are having two Pakistans, one which belongs to poor people and the other belongs to rich people. And this is unsustainable. We need to look at this, and I think the best way is to start by minimizing monopolies of big families like Shasta Malik or Sharif family or
Right,
Shah
absolutely,
Mahmood
Mr.
Qureshi
Sarabhai. We only have time for one last question. Briefly, Faisal.
Yeah. Bari Sahab, I have a question that let's suppose we have a situation in which both of the parties, PPP and PMLN, who obviously used to give lectures on democratic practices and everything, and right now in this issue related to videos, they are blaming each other. And if after the ECP probes it and they are, both of them, they are culprits of it, should we see the election taking place or there would be else?
Well, I think if this is just one video which is covering a small area, I don't see that on the basis of one video, elections could be postponed, unless it is proved that this practice is being done in widespread area in the constituency, and that will take long time. Today is 30th, and we have only left with 4 days. I don't think that this is going to happen, but I think the video has exposed what is going on in Pakistan, what is going on in this particular constituency. But this is also going on according to our observers who are based in Khanewal. This is happening there as well. I don't want to name any party, but I think all major candidates or political parties are involved in vote buying or also suppression of voting. If I know that my rival is going to win from a certain polling area, I'm giving money to people that they should submit their ID cards, and I will return their ID cards after the polling day. So we are doing that, and we have to. Election Commission has to deploy its own monitors, who should quietly find out. The media should also send their reporters, and the media can't do any research, but media can bring anecdotal stories, and based on that, I think we need to take up this issue.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Sarabhai, and joining us for insights into whatever has been going on and what needs to be done. Before we conclude this topic, Farrukh, I'd also like to mention that we've seen recently that the Information Minister Fawad Chaudhry has also talked about the EVMs and the fact that if they are not to be put into use in the election process, then the budget for the elections will not be given by the government. Of course, this points to the question as to whether or not there is a possibility after it has been passed from the joint session. We know that Governor Dilshad has come out with a statement that the ECP under Article 222 does have the power to reject the amendments. Is that so? And if it is, then how are we going to proceed with the use of EVMs?
Right. First of all, I wanted to actually comment on NA 133 as well, and later on I will, with your permission. But at this moment, let us first address your question. You asked about EVMs. I think that all these people who have worked for ECP in the past, they actually are qualifying their own talking points. But in the end, because now the law is there and there is communication, ECP actually will be following up on this matter. Of course, the opposition is going to keep on throwing fits. But despite that, what we are going to see is that ECP, despite actually raising a lot of concerns, is going to take care of this matter. With your permission, do we have time?
Yes, yes, continue.
Regarding NA 133, first of all, Faisal earlier was saying that what if this video proves that both parties, that are the opposition parties, are complicit? I don't know how that works. These two parties are fighting against each other, so one will be complicit, the other one will be the one that exposes. At this moment, PMLN is being accused of buying votes, and there are many interesting aspects in this. One, you know about PTI. PTI's candidate and covering candidate have already been disqualified. Why? Because Jamshed Cheema, despite he was assistant to Prime Minister, and then he resigned to actually participate, and then he did the clever thing of actually taking proposers and seconders not from the constituency but outside. And same happened to his wife, who was a covering candidate. So this is a process of elimination. One party is almost eliminated. In that context, Ijaz Chaudhry Sahab, you remember the senior leader and senator of PTI,
Right.
who actually met TLP leadership as well. He wanted his son to actually contest from here. He could not, so he has also actually lost interest in the constituency. Then now it becomes a contest between People's Party, whose candidate actually came on motorcycle, and then PMLN, whose candidate is actually the widow of the candidate who died. And while nomination papers were being filed, she was in iddat, the mandatory Islamic period in which you have to sit inside. If you are a wife of, you are a widow, so she is sitting there, right? Her son is an MNA also, and he is going to actually work for the votes. And then there is one silent element that we have to watch and we have to see, the one that Ijaz Chaudhry was trying to boo. So in this situation, a lot of mess is going on. We'll have to wait and see how these elections unfold.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Only in,
yes,
in,
Faisal,
in,
quickly,
20
please.
seconds. In 20 seconds, I said about both of the parties, PMLN, People's Party. Why? Because there is not one video. There is another video in which a People's Party is actually doing the same thing. And that footage is there as well. So that's why I thought like, both of them, they are blaming each other.
I was under the impression you are talking about the one way, this one video. But of course,
All
there
right.
must be many.
All right, we also have been joined now by Fahim Al-Hamid, who's a senior analyst, and he has joined us for our discussion on the Saudi package of aid, the agreement that has been done with the State Bank of Pakistan, where $3 billion have been deposited in the State Bank's reserves. And there's a lot of speculation that has been going on regarding this agreement, the kind of conditions that it comes with, what sort of repercussions it holds, and whether or not it actually results in any positive consequence for Pakistan's economy. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Fahim Al-Hamid. You have joined us on phone. Thank you for being with us on debate. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, let's first, before we move on as to what significance or impact such an agreement holds for Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, let's try and analyze and understand what exactly is part of the agreement. Can you help us perhaps end the kind of speculations that we've been seeing going around, as many as you can?
Well, thank you very much for having me in this program, and my salam and greetings to your distinguished guest. Let me first of all speak about, the speculation, and media always is better and breadth is speculation and gossip. So we should sideline this completely and concentrate on the agreement, which is institutional and between two states. So if we look at the agreement from this approach, and we are mature people, I suppose that, this agreement reflects the deep-rooted Saudi-Pakistan relation, and it's, reflect that, Saudi Arabia was and is and will be with Pakistan on all its difficult time. Saudi Arabia, this agreement has two elements, which is the deposit of 3 billion in your state bank, along with 1.4 billion for deferred payment for petroleum product. I can assure you that this type of agreement, it will enhance the Pakistani foreign currency, and it is the time for Saudi Arabia to show that we are shoulder to shoulder with the Pakistani nation. I think that's all I can speak, because as I told you, we are speaking about an official agreement which is now announced to the public and to the media.
Right. A concern over here, of course, is that the benefits or the change of such agreements take some time to actually come forward for the general public to also be able to appreciate them. And that, of course, is also part of why we see a lot of speculations coming into place as well. And, of course, the role of media is also involved, as you said. But considering the fact that maybe not every person is going to understand why such an agreement is important or good for Pakistan, and the economic impact that it holds. Can you also help us understand how this is going to impact in a way which is going to benefit the economy of Pakistan and is actually a good step forward?
In fact, this is our responsibility, who are the responsible journalists, writers, and thinkers, to explain to the people that this agreement is between two countries. And, Saudi Arabia appreciate Pakistan not only as a, brotherly state, but as a very important strategic partner in the Islamic arena. This agreement certainly, everyone knows that how much difficulty Pakistan economy is facing with the pressure of IMF. So for those who are experts in this affairs, they can realize that the Saudi initiative at this critical time, it will be for the benefit of the Pakistani nation, not for the benefits of those who are speculating.
Right. Let me also ask a question. Brother Fahim, Salaam Alaikum. This is Farrukh Pitafi. I hope you are well. Let me ask you about, the certain elements of this agreement that you pointed out. $3 billion that is going to be actually deposited with the State Bank of Pakistan, and $1.2 billion worth of delayed payment in fuel. Now the question right now is that before coming here, I actually checked up the news, and it hasn't actually been transferred as yet. Can you give us some ETA regarding when to expect? Because the spokesman of the Finance Ministry said that either it is going to be tomorrow or then the start of next week.
Yes, first of all, I hope that you are fine, in good health with your family, Farrukh. It's very nice to hear your voice after a long time. Brother, it has officially signed, and it is there in your media. Our director of the Saudi fund with your counterpart has signed the agreement, and it's viral everywhere. As of your finance ministry says that it will be either tomorrow or next week. It's only modalities now. Because I am not representing any official quarter, but since the agreement has signed, I'm sure it will not take more than 10 days maximum that, these things all will be in procedure.
Right. Mr. Fahim, there are, of course, also concerns regarding the kind of conditions that may have been put with such an agreement, and, of course, questions of whether or not any issues of sovereignty also come into play. There are concerns that perhaps there are conditions regarding the fact that maybe Pakistan can be asked for the return of this loan within 72 hours, and that in case of any dispute, a Saudi law will apply. Can you help me and our viewers understand as to whether this is something worrisome or this is something that is common practice and part of the formalities?
we have to understand, first of all, that, any agreement has its own, functionalities. With regards that it will return within 72 hours or this or that, I would really appreciate if you can address this question to the Saudi ambassador or to one of our officials here, and I can help you. What I can say as a journalist and as a well-wisher to the Pakistani government, that, this agreement is for the benefit of the Pakistani nation. And if there is any modalities, I rest assure you that if there is any modality as such, this has been discussed mutually, and there is a mutual understanding on that. So I mean, digging in this agreement, it will not help. It's what it helps that, there is an agreement, there is a deposit, there is a deferred payment, and that is very important, sister.
Right. Faisal, you had a question?
Yeah, Brother Fahim, I have a very interesting question. I want to take you back to the historic relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. Of course, brotherly relations they have always been, and Pakistan had very tough times in the past as well. I just want to highlight one time when Pakistan tested nuclear arsenal, and of course Pakistan was facing sanctions from the American side and the Western countries. At that time, Saudi Arabia was being pressurized by Bill Clinton to sanction Pakistan, whereas Saudi Arabia went the other way and simply said that we have very special relations with Pakistan and we can never do it. And we saw at that time for 3 consecutive years we were given oil on the deferred payment, and of course our economy went smooth later on. And same was the case with the MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. In his recent visit when he came to Pakistan, he said that we have very special brotherly relations with Pakistan. Do you not think that the people, especially the analysts who analyze it, that this package is a sort of a bargain chip that Saudi Arabia has gained, and Saudi Arabia might pressurize Pakistan in coming future? Do you not think that these sort of analysts, they need to know that we have a very long-term relation, and of course in future if something goes wrong we shouldn't be expecting these kind of dire consequences?
Brother, this is very, very important question. And, it is your responsibility, the media industry, the responsible journalist responsibility to explain that, the relationship between the two countries is time tested. I mean, if you go for who and cry for the past and this happened and that happened, it won't help us. Let's move forward. I will give you one example. When Saudi Arabia has announced, convening the ministerial meeting of Afghanistan, Pakistan has requested to have it to be, hosted by Pakistan. Saudi Arabia immediately has said yes. So for those who are, playing in the hot water, I would suggest them to concentrate on the strategic partnership between the two countries and how strong if Pakistan and Saudi Arabia as a main pillar of the Muslim Ummah can embark for the strategic interests of the Muslim Ummah, brother. It's a government agreement is always considered as an institutional power. Other than this, brother, this is only a speculation. And as a media person, all of you and we know that media wants to have a spicy story and put this and that. The real fact is that Saudi Arabia is coming forward to support the Pakistani nation without any return, brother. Why don't they understand that in relationships, such a relation, nobody asks for return, brother?
Thank you very much, Mr. Fahim Al-Hamid, Senior Analyst, for joining us and giving us the details and, of course, your comments on this very important agreement that comes at a very important time for Pakistan. And we, of course, deeply value our relationship with Saudi Arabia, who's continued to help us in difficult times and is doing so as well right now as well. Before we conclude, Farrukh, I also want to talk about how, of course, it is our responsibility to also try and understand the kind of situations that we also need to create within Pakistan to not allow the need for such moves or agreements as well. Of course, this is a wishful thinking that needs to come after perhaps many years of struggle. But I hope that we're moving that way, and I hope the things that need to be done to solve this debt crisis and to not keep on going back towards
any kind of bailouts.
Is something that's happening. You think so?
It is a very good question, and you're preaching to a choir. I totally agree with you. When it comes to reforms, we need to reform our economy. At this moment, when I was asking Fahim Saab about the transfer of monies, that was primarily because our rupee keeps on depreciating.
Exactly.
Right? And with every passing day, because we have to actually shore up our foreign reserves, foreign currency reserves, until this comes, it is going to weaken. Rupee is going to weaken further. So that's why this question. Now, the point is that the way our state has grown and the way we have acquired all the liabilities, particularly the repayments of debts over the years, is such that it becomes very difficult to actually balance the books. And that's why I've been advocating for macroeconomic stabilization for 10 years. The problem is Pakistan being a democracy. In democracy, you have to show that there is an economic growth. When growth happens, then people get the fruits, right? Trickle down and all that. But the problem is that till the time you don't fix what is broke in your system,
right,
in your revenue collection, in your spending, especially non-productive or non-developmental spending, till that time things will keep on hurting you, right? That is important. But I quickly wanted to actually comment on Pakistan-Saudi relationship and their visionary prince as well. While international media keeps on actually berating him or criticizing him, and they have their own ways to do it, I think MBS is, and in another country that is neighboring UAE, MBZ as well. They are the best things that could have happened to these two countries. Why? Because their country's power structure was such that reform was looking impossible. And they have brought in a lot of reform, and it is going to further increase. And how does this help us? Because in the past, when their old power structure was there, the kind of sausages we saw was, OBL, other such elements, extremism as well. Now that is something that is out of the picture. And Pakistan has three actually main benefactors: China, America, and Saudi Arabia. They have been repeatedly, we have been going to them, and they have been there for us. Then there are two, important benefactors: Japan and UAE. And these 5 countries have done tremendous things for us, and we have done a lot.
And we, of course, appreciate that as well. Faisal, before we end the show, do you agree with the fact that given the current scenario, Pakistan is making the best choices out of the choices that it does have?
Sana, without any doubt. How did we reach here? We reached here after 15 years of consecutive war on terrorism, which we fought valiantly. And second, that we hadn't had FDIs. We did not attract FDIs for 15 to 20 years due to our turmoil in terms of terrorism. And if we look at the current situation, the recent 2 years of this government, we were fighting COVID like any other country in the world. And Pakistan is not the only country which is struggling to cope with its economy. Almost every second country is trying to cope with it. And at this hour, as always, we used to get a help from our brotherly Saudi Arabia. At this hour, coming help from them, it's a ray of hope, a new ray of hope for me.
Right. By the way, terms and conditions are classified. We know
So far,
through
yes.
Reuters that the interest might be 4%, but we can't be very sure. You ask him all the good questions. You ask me very generic questions, and I'm going to complain about that. Your question that have we made right choices in the past 3-4 years? I think at the start we did not. Right? And I think that we should have gone to IMF immediately. We did not go, and that was a ball that we dropped. But after that, our policy, especially with this finance minister, has been improving, and it is getting better.
Right. Farrukh, I actually ask all the right questions, and all my questions are good. You just want to answer all of them. But thank you very much for your insight. That's all we have from the debate, everyone. Of course, what we hope for Pakistan is, of course, peace and prosperity. We want Pakistan to succeed, and we welcome all the help that is there for us. Some help is, of course, important and necessary for the way forward. And we hope that we move towards a more transparent and democratic Pakistan. Thanks for watching.